So if you look at this is like on the front page here, these are the different communication styles. The goal is toward the middle, which is assertive communication, okay? Overwhelmed relationships and overwhelmed families either do passive or aggressive usually, or a combination of passive aggressive. And the goal is to become more assertive in the middle, okay? So passive communication means that you don't express your feelings, your needs, or your ideas. You allow other people to step all over you. You can think of being passive as being a doormat, okay? Whatever you want, it's okay, fine. For a lot of people in a really overwhelmed family, that's a way of keeping the peace. My mom was very passive with my violent, crazy dad. She's like, okay, Jerry, whatever, okay, fine, Jerry, yeah. She never stood up for herself. She never stood up for the kids, anything just to keep the peace, right? And so that's what happens in passive when you become passive, is that you just sit there and let everybody else's rights are more important than your own. You get emotionally dishonest, how are you? I'm fine. You know, we weren't allowed to have any other feelings but being happy in our house growing up with a smile on our face. We weren't allowed to talk about anything else. I don't want to see anything but a smile on your face, you know. But I'm sad today, I'm having a bad day. I don't want to hear it. We couldn't even be too happy. There's too much noise going on in there, okay? We get indirect, we get inhibited, we're self-denying, we let other people make choices for us. We're the kind of people that if you're a passive person, people say, what do you want to do tonight? Oh, you pick. Okay, and then they pick, and then we get disappointed later because we don't get to do what we want to do, right? So that's passive. Then we get upset because we're not getting our needs met. Okay, so we get anxious, we feel disappointed. Well, you know, passive people are very reactive. They're really good at reading a room too. They can walk in and read a room. And they're really good at figuring out what other people want to hear. What do you want to hear, you know? When you grow up in a situation where you're always walking on eggshells, I became very passive around my dad, and I was really good at reading him, you know, what do you like today? All right? Okay. Other people, how other people feel about us. If you're a passive person, people look at you with pity, they get irritated with you, they get disgusted because you basically take on a victim stance. Passive people tend to be victims. They have a victim stance. I had a young therapist come up to me once and said, Chris, is there a personality test I can give clients to see if they're have a victim mentality? And I said, well, you can give them a personality test. There's some things you can do, but here's a real good gut level test. If you're talking to them about a problem and you're trying to help them, you say, okay, I see that's a problem. You validate it. Then you try to help them move into the solution, but they won't move out of it. You'll know within 10 minutes, all you want to do is slap them. And she goes, well, that's not very clinical or very, I said, it's never failed me yet. That's a person who's been taught to be a victim, that they're powerless. If you grow up in a situation where you can't win for losing, you're taught what they call learned hopelessness and learned helplessness. What's the point? Why bother? And there's nothing I can do to change it. So when people try to speak to you later as an adult and say, hey, there are other possibilities here, it's really? I don't believe that. It's very, very hard to believe, okay? Aggressive people are on the other side. They dominate or humiliate others. They stand up for their rights at the expense of other people here. They're defensive, they're direct, they're hostile though about it, okay? It's my way or the highway, okay? And there's a lot of nonverbal communication that goes along with hostile people too, right? People who beat people, all they have to do is do it once, really badly. Yeah, then all you have to do is the look after that, right? After that, they don't my dad beat the hell out of us so bad when we were younger that he only had to look at us in public and just go, was straighten up. Right, whatever, and it's abusive partners do that. I used to work at the Center for Nonviolence and, domestic violence program. And you train people after a while, if you're an aggressive, angry person, to walk on eggshells and to be able to read you. You only have to beat the hell out of them once. Really? And then all you have to do after that is just get the stance and the posture and the look. And you can control people with that too, okay? People feel hurt and humiliated, and they get angry. This is the people that sit around and wait. They want to get revenge. okay? I'll show you. It may not be very assertive way of showing you or direct, but people get passive aggressive, and aggressive people get really mad because they can control people for a little while, but after a while, everybody's going to exert their own free will that God gave them, right? Even God won't take away your free will, and eventually, everybody's going to go do what they want to do. You know, and anger and like really aggressive people, pisses them off. They, what? You're not doing what I want you to do. And I love it. Like the guys that used to come in there, I can't believe that they went and did that. And I said, why? You're not God. God gave them free will, and even God won't take it away, right? So the goal is to be in the middle. Okay, is to stay direct with people, to express what you're feeling and what you need. Okay, do you know the 2 questions that wounded kids never get asked growing up in an overwhelmed family? They're never asked 2 questions. What are you feeling right now? If a parent observes that they're upset, I see that you're upset. What are you feeling? And if they don't know exactly what they're feeling, a healthy parent helps them figure that out. What do you think you need? Usually when kids are upset, parents tell them what they need, right? Mm-hmm. You're upset, do this. You're that, whatever, you know? And parents pole vault over their kids' feelings all the time because they try to fix them. Exactly. Okay? So they pole vault over here. Men are trained that way too. Men in relationships men communicate and they're very solution oriented. Men are trained to get it right? And they're trained to be problem solvers. Men aren't really taught to listen to each other. Okay? Men and women communicate totally differently. Women are much more circular in their communication. They're taught, and they listen to each other. And they can talk on the phone and not even resolve an issue. They just dumped. Thanks for listening. I just dumped, right? This is how men listen to each other. You know that woman I'm dating right now? She's a bitch. Yeah, well, dump her. There's plenty of fish in the sea. Thanks for listening. Okay? That wasn't listening. That was fixing. You gave him a solution. But men go, hey, he's got my back. Okay? He was listening to me. But see, that's how men, we help each other with solution. That's how we show that we're listening. And it pisses women off. Okay? And so here's the problem though. When a man and a woman are in a relationship, when a woman gets upset, this is what goes on a man's mind. Oh crap. What do I have to do to fix that? So they get up in their head and they start thinking about solutions, right? And the woman's dumping and all she wants to do is vent, right? So like I had a woman come in my office one time and she was sitting there like this, just pissed, you could tell. And I said, what's up? And she goes, see that right there? She pointed at her husband, right? She goes, he's always a jerk. He never listens to me, right? He's always a jerk. And he never listens to me. And I told her, I looked right at him and I said, you know what? You just hit a wound of hers from her past. And he says, what do you mean? And I said, nobody's never anything or always something. I said, was he a jerk on your wedding day? Was he never there for you, when your kids were born? She goes, well, that's not what I meant. And I said, okay, but we know a wound got hit, right? I said, tell me what happened. She goes, my boss is a bitch. She's a backstabber. She steals all of her ideas and this. And all I want to do is come home and talk about it, right? And so I'm talking and he looks at me and he says, well, everybody has a supervisor. Why don't you just get your supervisor to do this, do whatever, blah, blah. I want to go into the solution, right? And so I sat there and I went, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. I know what's going on here, right? And I said, when he gives you a solution, so I looked at him and I said, do you know what her best girlfriend would say to her if she called up and said, my boss is a bitch? And he goes, I have no clue. All she would say is, tell me all about it. No, she didn't. She what? Go on, girl. What? Oh, come on now, or whatever. And they won't even come up with a solution, right? And then, thanks for listening. And the men are sitting there going, what are you going to do about that, right? And men are literal. Like, she would say things like, I'm going to stab that bitch. And so he's going, do I have to hide the knives, Chris? I go, no. I said, she's just venting, okay? But we take it literally, right? We start thinking we got to hide knives, we got to do all this kind of stuff, all right? And so I said to her, when he tries to give you a solution to the problem without hearing your feelings first, I said, what's actually going on inside of you? And I've never heard a woman say it faster. She went just like this. She goes, he tells me 3 things. I mean, she had thought about this, obviously, right? She goes, first of all, he tells me that my feelings don't matter. And that really pisses me off. The second thing he tells me, he'd rather be anywhere else in the world than with me. And it's just like my dad who walked out on me. I feel abandoned all over again. I said, dude, that's the never. And the always that you hit. Because she told me that, like, she told us that when she was 13, her dad left when she was 3. But they lived in the same little town, right? Up around Webster or whatever. And so she would see him occasionally with his new family and everything. When she came 13, she became a babysitter. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to ask my dad to come to my 14th birthday. And I'm going to buy him dinner, right? I'm going to show him that I'm becoming responsible. Maybe he'll want to have a relationship with me now. So he finally agreed to go with her. It took him a while. So he shows up. So I'm sitting there, Chris, and I'm all in my little dress, and I'm sitting there with the menus, and I'm waiting for him to show up. And he walks in and sits down. And you know how like kids that are like from like 12 to 15, they just look goofy? They're kind of gangly, right? Like boys don't fit their bodies, and women, you just don't really fit yet, right? Everything, because you're growing. He sits down and he looks at her, and the first words out of his mouth, now he's never been there for her, right? Looks at her and says, God, I thought you'd turn out better than this. I said, whoa, what did you do? She goes, well, I threw my water on him and got up and walked out and called him an ass, whatever, got up and left. I said, dude, that's the never and the always that you hit, because everybody has nevers and always. All people in relationship have nevers and always, things that can get hit, right? And so I said, what's the third thing that he tells you? She goes, he tells me I'm too dumb to come up with my own answer. And that's what she says, I've raised 3 of his kids. I have a master. I am not a stupid woman. She says, when I talk to my girlfriends, we trust each other that we're smart enough to come up with the answer. We just need to dump. And I said, do you tell him you just need to dump? I said, you can help him. If you see him jump in, I said, so I turned to him, I said, hey, you're trying to piss her off that much, right? He goes, no, I'm trying to help. And I said, I know. That's how men show love, right? We try to fix it. So I said, you can ask her one question. This is a question you can ask the women in your life or the men, okay? Anybody that's upset, you can ask them a question to take you off the hook. All you have to do is make an observation, validate the feeling. How are you feeling, right? And then what do you need? All you have to do is say, I see that you're upset, overwhelmed, or concerned. That covers anything. And it's not a judging word, okay? Man, I see you're really upset right now. What do you need from me? Do you need me to just listen? Do you need a solution? Or do you need some space? And he said, like, my grandfather taught me this question, okay? And my grandfather said, pray, Chris, that they say listen. Because you can learn active listening. You can learn how to just go, no, they didn't. Really? Wow, what? Oh my God. All you have to do is parrot back what you hear, right? That's active listening. He says, if they ask for space and they go away and think, they can make you more of the problem. Okay? Because they can ruminate, they can sit in it. Well, yeah, he is an asshole. Oh my God, he's a jerk, whatever. And if they say a solution and you give them a solution and it doesn't work, who did you just throw under the bus? Exactly. So he said, Chris, you better learn how to do something. He says, I've met your dad. I know why you don't know how to do active listening, right?
What if they say you quit patronizing me?
Then you sit there and say, there's nothing I can do with that. I can't do anything with that. Yeah, but you know what? I'm not going to take responsibility for what somebody else needs. That's setting me up for failure.
Mm-hmm. All this stuff works fine with a reasonable person, but
right.
Unreasonable
right.
person, it's all out the window.
Well, and that's why you can't do this when you're angry. Okay? Nobody can process and use any of these skills when you're upset. You can't.
Or like you said, when a person is just really not capable
right. of listening. Right, yeah. And they won't. And some people are going to be like that. But I'd rather know up front. Because I'm not going to invest my energy in somebody that is just going to use it as ammunition. Right? It's not worth it. Right. We don't have to. Yeah. My sponsor in AA used to tell me, Chris, quit volunteering for pain.